This is the Estes Trail Ascent Trail Running Conference, and we're in Estes Park, Colorado, at the beautiful Stanley Hotel. This morning, we're going to talk about trail shoe development. And first up, we're going to have Greg Tyndall from New Balance speak a little bit about the history of trail shoe development. So I'll turn it over to Greg.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thanks. Welcome. And just talk about trail shoe development. Basically, for New Balance, that meant kind of the 800 series was our flagship shoe that took off right late 80s, early 90s. Henry here can tell you there was something about another running company as one of their #1 selling trail shoes of all time. And that actually transcended trail running and also went into a bit of fashion, but that's besides the point. Our first foray into it, and ever since then, it's really just been, what's the next innovation? What can we do to improve that look and that feel, and different tread patterns, different materials on the upper? Because I think, as we all know, when you get out on the trails, different surfaces demand and require that you have different tread on the bottom of the shoe, different uppers on the shoe as well. So, and it's a constant evolution. It's a lot of fun to be involved in. And
I guess you can't hear me. All right, better. Yeah, so basically, ever since we started deciding that we need to put different tread on the bottom of shoes, and I don't think that's necessarily a recent innovation, but as far as major companies doing it, it's been a little bit more of a recent innovation. So, but I'm sure Bill Bowerman probably made some Nike waffles with a little extra tread so they could go out on those line trails out in Oregon. So it's been around for a while. Anybody else want to add to that? Henry?
Well, I think, this all started, I think, the big development of trail shoes back in the early 90s with ACG, and Nike started launching an all conditions gear line to add to those people that went out in the woods or the backcountry or whatever, and they needed a shoe besides a Nike Waffle or a Saucony Jazz, or they just needed a little bit more rugged shoe. So with that, in the early 90s, you saw the ACG line emerge. And it's trying to make some comebacks over the last decade. It comes back and it goes back, and then it comes back and then it goes back again. But Greg's right. I mean, late 90s, everybody had a pair of Adidas Response trails, at some iteration of that. And then on the tail end of that came New Balance in the 801. And I was just talking to Brian. The main reason why that shoe worked so well was the only board-lasted shoe in trail running, and it's not done anymore for an expense issue and also for a weight issue. But that's why we just sold so many of that shoe. But then you saw in the last 5 years, right, the explosion of trail running, the explosion of Ragnar, the explosions of the Spartathlon, and all of these. It's not okay for people to just run 5K. They have to throw in all these obstacles and all of these other things now, which is great for the sport, and it's great to get people out there, and it's great for the footwear business because then you could create new shoes for that. And I still look at things and say, why are all these races selling out? Why has Leadville now become a lottery? Why are all trail races pretty much in the front range selling out so quickly? And that's been true in the last several years, because of the big movement in trail running, and people can go outdoors. You don't have to be, you don't have to be a sage, 120 pounds or 30 pounds, whatever your sage. Oh, 150 pounds. I'm sorry, he's 5'9". You don't have to be that ultra uber athlete to enjoy the outdoors. You can be just, the guy who wants to just go out on the weekends with his buddies and run and have a good footwear to get in there. So. I spoke too much.
No, not at all. And speaking of that, I'll throw this over to Sage. And if Sage Canaday runs for Hoka 1-1, and if you can talk a little bit about what Hoka's been doing over the past couple of years.
Yeah, so I haven't been around as long as these guys here, but we do have a Hoka rep in the building here, Nicole back there, who can tell you all the tech specs and all the new Hokas, but it's a relatively new brand in the US, and it's really taken off in the last couple of years. They're started by 2 French ultra runner adventure racers. And what you've seen, or at least what I've seen just in the short time I've been in the sport, is that kind of starting with like the book Born to Run. When Born to Run came out, a lot of people went real minimal with their shoes. Vibram 5 Fingers were really popular, and real thin tread, low drop shoes. And then Hoka was kind of seen, and this is kind of an unfair stereotype because I don't like stereotypes, but it was kind of seen as the maximalist shoe. And you have, real extreme stack height, like on this shoe here. But now Hoka's really branched out, and they've actually made a lot lighter shoes, like the Clifton here, which is 7.7 ounces. And new prototypes. And it's been really fun to see the evolution in this brand's design.
Thanks, Paige. And Joe Gray runs for Scott. And Joe, if you could talk a little bit about what you've noticed with Scott over the past couple of years, and what direction you see Scott going with his shoes.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Scott, like they've always been, really, they want to make sure they cover all bases. So they want to have a shoe that's going to be great for rocks, it's going to be great for in the mud, or it's going to be a great shoe for technical terrain. And they also are a great company for the diverse athletes like myself. I want to focus on road and not just mountain all year. And so I've seen them really make, they've taken really big steps in terms of really improving their road line and really expanding it. So now you have a full line of shoes that you can use on the road, a full line of shoes you can use on the trail. And I think one of the biggest things that I really like about the companies are not chasing a fad, shoes that are super minimal, like super minimal. And they never try to jump on board with the fad. They want to make shoes that work, that function, and be innovative with their own ideas. And that's what I really appreciate about the company. I like people who just, they're original, they're genuine, and it matches my kind of personality. So it's a great company for me. And also, I see them, the evolution of rock plates, which I think is a really big thing in the trail world, because the first models of trail shoes did not, feature rock plates. They just had like harder outsoles, blown rubber, a little bit of that stuff. But now you're seeing companies, they're creating these really thin, really flexible rock plates that are also protective. And Scott's been really good about making rock plates that are flexible and they don't feel too stiff. But yet, if you step on something really sharp, you don't have the fear of something tearing up your foot. And I'm kind of scared to see what is going to happen with rock plates, or how expensive shoes are going to get, because it's getting to the point where rock plates are getting to be quite high tech, quite expensive materials. And so it's going to get to the point where, the rock plate is going to put the price point up, 5–10%, and shoes are already going up. But I feel like Scott's done a good job about, having functional rock plates, functional uppers, where the price point's not getting so ridiculous that, someone who is not a rich person, they can go out and get a couple pairs of shoes. I think sometimes some of these charge people for materials, and I feel like we've done a good job with, making it affordable for people and giving them a high quality shoe, which, I think it's, you have to have the money to do it. There's companies like Nike that, you look at their random running shoes and they have like just a ridiculous line of just random running shoes, but they have the money to do this and they can be affordable. And I think it's important to have affordable shoes so that you can get new people into it, because not everybody's going to be rich. And so I think you see that evolution too, companies trying to expand their line, making shoes more affordable, using different materials, searching out better materials, sourcing out materials to make shoes cheaper. And so I think that's great for the running community, for the growth of the sport as well.
Thanks, Joe. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian Metzler. Brian's with Competitor Group Magazine, and Brian's also a runner. Most recently, he's entered the foray of burro racing. Loves that. A lot of fun, a fun sport. It's our Colorado State sport, for those of you that did not know that. And I wanted to have Brian talk a little bit about what the magazine does in consumerism and advertisers, outreach, and how they cover the trail shoe market. In a nutshell.
Thank you, Nancy. I will talk later about burro racing, but it's a fun sport here in Colorado. Regarding media and trail running and shoe development, I started Trail Runner Magazine in 1999. If you remember back then, kind of what Henry was talking, there was one or two good trail shoes, and a lot of kind of awkward shoes that we all ran in, and certainly there was running brands making trail shoes, and boot brands making trail shoes. And neither were very good compared to what we have now, obviously. So certainly the evolution has happened where both those types of brands have kind of been able to obviously use athletes and use really kind of key developments to make better shoes, which is great. As far as media goes, I mean, certainly, you know, a lot of magazines do reviews. Certainly that includes wear testing with shoe testers. Hopefully that gets good information out to consumers. At the same time, we also have advertisements in our magazine, which are always, you know, people look at those kind of skeptically sometimes and think, oh, you know, you're involved with the brands and you're reviewing the shoes. And certainly that's a tough balance. And the one thing I say is, you know, we try to have these wear test reviews to give real information. And then, you know, certainly whatever the ads have are saying, obviously New Balance or Hoka has their own way of pitching a shoe. And certainly there are trends tied to some of those things. I think the key is for consumers is to try and find information that they think is going to lead them to a better shoe. I'd say, you know, be aware of trends, but also be wary of trends. You know, find out what's right for you and your feet. I mean, I think that everyone knows there's dozens of different shoes here, but everyone knows what feels right on their feet. I think there's a different shoe for every different trail. And so I think that certainly, you know, obviously Sage and Greg can speak great about their brands, and I love those brands as well, and I've run each of those brands a lot. But certainly, my thing is trying to find the real information about the shoe. A lot of that has to do with trying it on and feeling the foot in it, and really boiling it down to what you know about how you run on trails. And again, there's a lot of different trails, different types of trails, and different types of shoes you need for those trails. And so, again, you know, there's a lot of information about shoes, there's a lot of trends, a lot of hype, which is great because the sport is growing because of it. We see a lot of trail shoe imagery being used in bigger settings outside of the core of the sport, and that's great. But at the same time, you have to find out what's right for you. I mean, again, just looking at all the brands here, some of these are brand new brands in the last couple of years, and that's a great thing for the sport. It's a matter of finding what's right for you.
And to continue on that line, Henry, if you can talk a little bit about what influences your buying decisions and what type of shoes people come in the stores to purchase and what their most requested shoe is perhaps, and how you actually get somebody in a shoe and get the right shoe for them in your retail setting.
Well, I think, you know, the basic questions is when somebody comes in is, you know, what have you been running in? What have you had success in? What didn't work for you in the past? Are you injured? How many miles are you running? And those are kind of just the standard questions to kind of get a profile of, you know, what type of runner, are you carrying a pack? Those kind of questions kind of lead to, okay, well, maybe, you know, you should investigate some footwear that might suit you best. And that kind of at least gives you an idea, not at least work with something that's, you take out all of the variables, and what you get left with is the personality of the runner. And that helps determine, you know, okay, well, you know, I'm only running every other day, 4 or 5 miles. It's like, okay, and I weigh 180 pounds. Okay, so then you look at the structures of the shoes on the wall, and most people come in and they just want to be healthy. They just want to run, do their sport, and not get injured. Most people. It's very easy. It's not that complicated. So the trick is to figure out what works with the biomechanics of the runner. As Brian said, everybody runs differently. That is what's great about running trails. You know, you don't have to get a bike. You don't have to get a bike fitting, get a shoe fitting, but all you have to do is get shoes and go out the door. That's the beauty of running. The self-expression of enjoying the outdoor environment. And shoes help you get there. Shoes are tools to solve people's problems, but also tools to help you enjoy, you know, what you love to do. And, you know, if there's an issue, well, you know, this shoe didn't work for me in the past, you know, you need to know, we need to know as retailers, what's out there in the market, what's coming in. Hey, this version didn't work this last year, but the new version coming out is going to be so much better, so maybe you should wait for that. So it's the retailer's job to know what's out there, what's coming out, what's been in the past, and the history of shoes. You know, I've just been blessed to be in this industry, just the running shoe side, for the last 16 years, but I've been in the outdoor side for about 25 years, and that's a pure blessing. So you see a lot of things, and you see a lot of things that don't work, and a lot of things that do work. But mostly, I think if you can just keep an individual healthy and allow them to do what they love to do, that's what it's all about. And it's enhancing people, giving them the ability to do what they love. That's what shoes do. Now, the other things that go with that, clothing and hydration packs, and yes, but could you just run out the door and maybe drink out of a street like it was in, I'm talking about cross-country camp in 1979. I'm just 70. Oh, Long's Peak, yeah. Yeah, you can, but that's, and there you get back to the true, just strip everything bare, and it's you and the mountain and the trail and your thoughts, and that's where you create that oneness. And shoes help you get there. And so it's our job to hopefully let everyone enjoy that and keep doing that. And the thing is if you come in with a problem, you express, I have this issue and I have a problem. If I can figure out what that problem is and fix it, and then you come back again, it's like, oh yeah, we had that problem a year ago. We knew what we did about it. Let's just kind of keep going in that same genre. You know, over the last 5 years, as they talk about Vibram, it's funny because when you talk about Vibram, in Europe, it never caught on. It was only in America. You know why? Because Americans love a story. We love to be enthralled with a book and a story and how beautiful it sounds, and I'm just going to go and throw my shoes away and I'm just going to go and run. Isn't that a wonderful story? However, we're the heaviest nation still on the planet. You know, we're not Tarahumara Indians who weigh 110 pounds. You know, we have a special diet. That's not us. So once again, you get the right shoe that works for you. And what allows you to be healthy, continue to be healthy, and do what you love to do. That's what it's all about.
So Greg, I know there's a lot of folks out in the audience. How many of you live right next to a trail? Okay, there's about half of you. Okay, for those people that don't live right next to a trail and don't drive to the trailhead, maybe run to the trailhead, what do you consider a good shoe for a transition, and how does the trail running shoe market address that issue?
Absolutely, good question. You know, we had a good example of that this morning where I had two different styles out for wear test this morning. One was a lead build, and a couple of you guys are wearing those. And we really made that strictly for an ultra runner. It's got a Weaver outsole, it's got a very nice rigid rock plate in it that's also very soft. The toe box was made to accommodate foot swell. We actually went out to an ultra marathon where we're developing the shoe, did foot scans of people on 12-mile loops, and as they ran the race, their foot swelled up and said, okay, we got to make the toe box wide enough to accommodate that. All right, so that shoe is very technical, very made for trail running specific. The shoe I have in front of me here, the Fresh Foam Trail, is really for what Nancy was talking about, kind of that tweener shoe. It doesn't have a strict rock plate. Sorry. It's more of just a nice cushion shoe. It's kind of an older construction, very soft underfoot feel. It's got some nice lugs on it, but it's the same kind of thing where if you're running on the road to the trail, you're not going to wear out your lugs on this as quickly as you would on maybe a more technical trail shoe. So, you know, that hybrid shoe, that road to trail, we have a lot of that. We have 860 Trail, which is basically our road shoe with just a little more aggressive bottom, and maybe the upper goes a little bit for that sloppy leather road. So, yeah, there are all these iterations of different trail shoes, and they all serve different things. You know, I always look at my shoe collection as kind of like a golf bag, right? I have a different shoe for each different condition, up on the sand trap, condition, whatever. It's not a golfer bad analogy, but that's kind of how we look at it when we go to develop these shoes. Who's this for? What's the audience here? And we definitely have different audience for every one of our shoes, between minimus all the way to people that are totally different.
Great answer. Okay, Sage, I have a question for you. So you've been on our mountain running team, you won Pikes Peak Ascent this year in the World Long Distance Challenge. You run a lot of different distances. How does HOKA work with you to make sure you have the right shoe for the different disciplines that you're running, because it's not just one thing that you do. So if you can talk a little bit about that as your ambassador role, how that works for you.
Yeah, so I've been really happy with Hoka because kind of their new focus on their new shift is to make a shoe for every runner at every distance on every surface. And I mean, they sponsored Lou Manzano, who races the mile on the track. He was a silver medalist in the Olympics. To ultra marathon runners like Darcy Africa, who does the UTMB, or not UTMB, Hard Rock, sorry, Hard Rock 100. So 100-mile ultra marathons, mountain racing, anything in between. And I found the newest shoe model from Hoka is the Huaca, and it's one of their second lightest shoe model. It's actually a shoe that I've raced in. I did a road marathon in it earlier in the year, and then I've done pretty much every mountain ultra race I've done this year. I've raced in that shoe, and it's kind of a hybrid shoe where you could run well on the road and get good enough traction, and you could run on moderate trails and still get pretty good traction too. So having that shoe actually really helped support me, and I was happy with that. And then Clifton, of course, is their lighter shoe, and I actually wore this pair right here at the Pikes Peak Ascent. Going up, it held its own on the dry rocks. So, and they're always working on new prototypes and getting feedback from wear testers and other athletes on the team to develop new innovative shoes for any surface, for any runner, any distance. And so it's exciting to be a part of that.
Maybe you can find those shoes later and you can raffle those off.
They're pretty dirty.
So Joe, kind of the same question for you with Scott, and you just finished a 50K, you were at the Mountain Champs. If you can talk a little bit about the surfaces at the Mountain Champs and how you selected your shoe, and talk about the different terrain you went through in Italy, and give people a little idea of how you picked your shoe for that event.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with Scott, I can't take too much credit in terms of what they already have out right now. I'm working with them in the lab now for newer models. I've been kind of blessed with the fact that they have a shoe that can kind of help me for whatever I need. I was talking about lock plates earlier, and he kind of gave me a bigger, but for example, we have our new Charlotte coming out, and we don't have a rock plate. For example, someone like me, I don't necessarily need a rock plate. I feel fairly comfortable on technical trails, and it's not a big deal for me. I do think it's important for people getting new to the sport who might not be like so nimble yet on the rocks and such. But for example, with the World Championships, it was a tough course to pick your shoe because, we start off with a road, pure road, and then you get on dirt, and then you're going up, pretty nasty stuff, almost like sky racing, the top part. And so you had to be careful. You're like, well, I could go in with a road shoe, but then when you get up there, you step on something because the road shoe's a little bit soft, and it's so soft, and it's really flexible. And all of a sudden, you jab your foot, and now you're having some problems to get to the top, which that has happened to me because I came from a track cross country background before I came into mountain running, so I always wanted really light shoes for races, and I didn't think about things like comfort and protection. But in mountain running, those things become important. And after running the course, I was like, yeah, you need a little protection. You definitely need some traction. And a course like this, like I said, it's very difficult because when rock is somewhat wet and you also have soft terrain like mud, it's hard to pick a shoe like that. You have to pick a hybrid. And the Trail Rocket was a perfect shoe for me because, to make it simple, when I tell somebody, oh, it's a hybrid trail shoe, the easiest way to think of it is a shoe that doesn't have too much and a shoe that doesn't have too little. You don't want so much traction that when the rocks are just slipping and fall all over the place. And then you don't want a shoe that doesn't have much at all, and you can't grip when it gets wet. And so, a shoe like the Trail Rocket worked really well for me. It's lightweight, it flexes, when you need to go on the steep stuff and go to all your feet. And so, Scott's done some upgrades on that are coming out this year or the next season, and it's a great shoe for for that condition. But yeah, I think hybrid shoes, you do see a lot of companies focusing on that now because some athletes are coming from a background very different than trail running, and they're kind of mixing up their runs, trail and road. Most runners do. I don't know any trail runners who are only doing mountain stuff all the time. There's going to be some weather here and there. There's going to be some times where you are not at home, you're not, you don't have that nice little trail right in your backyard. You might be traveling somewhere, you might be in downtown, doing a business conference. And so you got to make a shoe that can kind of get you through both. And Scott's been good about making that kind of stuff.
Thanks. And we'd like to get some audience interaction. So does anybody have any questions specific to trail shoe development? And we'll get your microphone out here so we can get you on the mic.
Coming.
First of all, thank you all for being here. It's great to have so many excellent speakers and athletes here. Sage, my question is for you. If you were doing a race, a long race like 100-mile or Sonoma or something like that, do you switch shoes, or do you think about the shoe as you're becoming fatigued? So do you think about, this is a good shoe for this course, but as I'm getting more fatigued, I'm switching out shoes. Maybe there's river crossing or something like that. Do you switch into a more cushioned shoe halfway through the race?
We're getting a handout here. Microphone.
That's a good question. So first of all, I haven't done 100 miles, so I can't really speak from experience, but the first time I did 100K was at the Yurok 100K when I was in Virginia, and half the road or half the course was on road, paved road, and the other half was on like the Appalachian Trail. And so I did have a drop bag at like 40 miles with a different pair of shoes because I thought maybe I want to stop and change into them. But usually, I think a lot of the top runners don't have time because you want to go through that transition as fast as possible. I think it's always good to be prepared though. So if you're doing a 100-mile, you always have a drop bag with extra food, extra clothes, extra shoes, because over the course of 100 miles, depending on what environment you're in, the conditions could change really fast. So if you're doing a UTMB or something, it could start snowing or raining, torrential downpour, and the trail might get extremely muddy. I've never been over there, so I don't know what it's like, but it could change fast. And so I think for most people, it's definitely a good idea to have a backup pair of shoes, or if you find your feet swell up so much and you get some hot spots or blisters, you definitely want a fresh pair of socks and a fresh pair of shoes, maybe a different model. So for most people doing the 100, I definitely recommend it. And when I debuted my first 100, which I plan to do, I'll definitely probably have a drop bag with another pair of Hokas in them. So it's good to have that option there, but I think you have to play it by ear during the race and see how you feel and see what the conditions are, and that'll determine whether or not you want to stop and switch.
Great answer. And if Sage does this 100-mile, and we'll get him to sign those shoes too.
I just wanted to say it's very cool to see about 50% of the audience female. So I'm hoping you guys can speak to this as well. What do you think about all the females in the growing sport of trail running, and specifically in shoes? What's going on with women?
This female likes it. So who would like to take that one on?
I can start with that. I mean, from some point of view, certainly it's great to see how some women running trails. There's been a lot of great performances, obviously, the Olympic sport. Certainly way back in Tracy, but more recently, certainly. Secondly, I think that from the shoe point of view, Henry can speak to this too, certainly women are buying more shoes, buying more stuff for running stores than men, and certainly I think shoes have adapted to that, and it's no longer the shrinking kind of factor. It's actually making shoe lasts that are based on women's foot sizes and shapes, which is a big deal. And it took a while to get there, and not every shoe still has that, but it's definitely gone a long way with that. So I think, on top of that, there's obviously the style and apparel and things that are less bland. There's more women designers, more women brands in the space now. There's more women making great decisions at running shoe brands. There's a lot going on behind the scenes too that are really influencing that, and that's definitely a lot of improvement.
I think if you look at the growing trend, as Brian was saying, in women and just when running in general, and from a retail side, it's over 55% purchase. And so that's a lot of buying power. Now, these companies that don't catch on with the fact that, hey, we've got to start building things that it's not a man's version womanized. It's truly woman or female glass, as Brian was saying, or clothing. Designers are very important in that. You see a lot more designers coming in that are women. I think Solomon's finally kind of catching up with that as they're pulling in more designers that are women. But it is an issue. And I have a lot of meetings with a lot of different vendors. And when they come in, I say, you need more women. You need more women because that's the biggest growing trend in running in general. And, I've coached the same women's group for 13 or 14 years, and they're 38 to 65 years old. And they go in, same 20, they go in, they spend money, and they like to commune together, they like to have coffee, go out, and go a little shopping, or go running together. Guys generally don't do that. So, solitary, you got blue, okay, I'm good. You got navy, you got black, okay, I'm good. Although on the footwear side, we see a lot more colorful colors, i.e. via Asia and Europe that are adding to the spark of footwear as you see in general, but more brighter colors. A lot of that 80s retro, as you know, in the last 18 months has come back really hard and really strong. Like we thought the 80s went away with Day-Glo. It's back now bigger than ever. But I think, as Brian was saying, is if from a retail standpoint, you don't address the fact that women come in, women spend money, and they want the newest things, and they want the good gear, they want the right shoe, and just to dismiss that and say, well, they're just women, that would be asinine for any retailer to do that. And chances are, once you get that group, they're going to tell two other people. If you carry something in an XL, and somebody's an XL, they're going to tell someone, hey, they carry XL. You carry an extra small, they're going to tell people who got extra smalls there. You carry mediums in a style or a brand that they like, or hydration, or something that they like, they tell other people. Men don't do that. They just don't. Yeah, go look at number, no, look at the internet. So yes, very much so.
That was a really great answer. I know it's tough with me being up here telling you guys, yeah, go girls. A great question. Okay, we got another one out in the audience.
I just want to point out that I know it's glaringly obvious, but there's no women on the panel. We had a woman scheduled for the panel, but she was unable to make it. That was Shannon Payne, so we're not trying to not have women. Next question.
Just having come back from the Bear 100 and working 14 months, 14 hours in the mud, I'm just really curious if there's a go-to shoe that you have for mud, and does it, if I buy it, will it make me as fast as Anna Frost? Okay, let's just take that one on. Very good job.
Yeah, how much are we talking, like? Well, she said about this much. I can tell you right now, there's not a shoe that's going to help you from like that. The only thing you can do is get a spike plate. But there are shoes out there that could technically accommodate that. But for like a slip course where we're talking not ridiculous, maybe 7, 8 millimeters. Scott has a new shoe coming out called the Super Track. Really grippy shoe and also pretty good cushion, so it's kind of meant for the athlete who's doing something on wet terrain. Like I typically tell people, because I'm from the Northwest, I said, this shoe is going to be great in the Northwest because it's always kind of moist. The trails are very different than what you see in Colorado, and also it has some cushion, so it's meant for the person who's going to be an ultra athlete who needs a little bit more traction on the soft stuff. And then right now we have like the Trail Rocket. If you're doing like a shorter, faster event that's kind of muddy, it doesn't have the rock plate, or if you want a little bit more protection from the rock plate, maybe a little bit of protection, a little more traction on rocks, and a little bit on, like, say, light mud. We have the Kinabalu.
what shoes you wear.
I think, with anytime you have a lug pattern that are either close together, mud's gonna stick to it. So it depends on the lug pattern, if it's separated far enough, or if it's that muddy, you're gonna be in the mud and the whole course is gonna be like that. Basically nothing with any tread on it, so nothing to stick to it. So nothing will stick to it. And just kind of, there's not much to help you with that, but if you have a lug, it allows lead to stick to it. It's a protrusion. So if you have no lugs, then there's nothing.
I'll take it a little different direction, only that we actually made a shoe specific for something like that a few years ago. The 840 Trails kind of fell from inspired shoes, really big, thick lugs on it. We had a woman on our team who still runs for us, Brandy, her also lives in Everett. Mountain Road. Love that shoe because it gave a great grip going up all the shoes. Unfortunately, there's not a giant one, right? So, as good of a shoe as it was so niche, we didn't sell a whole lot of pairs. Therefore, it's not right. So, you have to find a niche brand to do that for you, or because it's only certain times you're going to.
So on that topic, with New Balance, when you have a shoe that people absolutely love, okay, the 790, as an example, what do you do, the 101? So what do you do, would you ever bring a shoe back if people wrote to you and said, we really like this, like a sitcom, we really want that new shoe back? What do you do in that case?
So that's a great question, and you get this all the time as a rep or somebody working with a shoe company. Man, that shoe was the best. Why did you get rid of it? That new one is a piece of junk. Well, we didn't intentionally make a piece of junk to replace the shoe that you love, right? We obviously thought when we made the new shoe that was better than the one otherwise done. However, there's always missteps. There's always learnings. A good example is the shoe that Terry has on. It's the first version of the shoe that just came out in July. If you look at the forefoot on the shoe, it's ripped up. It's this shoe right here. We had a little bit of T-land issues on that, right? These are prototypes that are following for next year's versions. First round road, second round road. The first thing we did was beef up the outsole on the lateral side and try and keep that T-land. A couple other little things there. But in terms of an old shoe, bringing it back, if we made a misstep, we have one that just hit the market in July that we're going to do with by January, and we're actually going to bring back an old shoe that we had in mind. People have been talking to us about 2 years and said, you guys blew it, we just want that back. We're doing it. So yes, it's possible, but it has to be a very, very, very high demand, and we also have to believe that it's the right decision. If you don't always like to go, we made a mistake. It's almost like the new Coke class. So the 101 Trail shoe will be reappearing in the market in January, and that was kind of a big goal for us to go, okay, the new versions that we put out weren't as good as old.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, one over here.
Hi, I just moved to Colorado from southern Arizona, and I'm a little worried about the winter months coming up. I was wondering if you guys, if you buy Yak tracks and would put them on a model of shoe that you already love, or if you buy a new model like the Salomon Speed Crossings that are specifically designed for ice.
Good question. We'll start that with Sage. Are you going to go out and buy Solomon's for your snowman?
Never. I guess it depends what city in Colorado you live in. Fort Collins. Okay, so Front Range, more mild in the winter. That's kind of like Boulder, I think, which is where I live. So, do they get more? I don't know what I'm talking about. Occasionally, I have strapped on Yak tracks or some sort of extra traction if I'm going up a really steep trail. Sometimes in Boulder, the trails will ice over, and that's kind of the most treacherous conditions you get. Like in the spring, you get a freeze-thaw cycle where there'll be a layer of ice under a layer of snow, and then it's a little bit of a risk to go out with just a trail shoe that might not grip in the ice. Whereas like the Yak track or something really digs in. Or actually, I have Catula spikes as well. They're like really aggressive, like triangle pieces of metal that'll just dig into ice. But it's got to be really icy and really snowy, which for me, it's only maybe a couple weeks out of the whole winter. I have to deal with that. Otherwise, just wear a good shoe, good traction, try to stay on the spots where it's just packed down snow and not ice.
I threw you off with the Solomon comment. Okay, Joe.
I was going to say, I think the word, at least for me, what I found is because Colorado's so dry, the snow is fairly grippy compared to like when you're, from like West's Rockies and compared to like when I've been in Switzerland, the snow is kind of like really wet and like slick. But here the snow's so dry that I feel like, depending on how high you're talking about going up, but if you're not going up too high where it's not freezing over too much, you really don't need that stuff. You just need a shoe that's got good waterproofing in case your feet get wet. But I mean, I could show you a really cheap way of not having to waste money on that stuff with some flat sheet on the streets. If you don't want to spend $40 on one of these companies who make that kind of stuff, so yeah, I don't think it's necessary.
And maybe Henry, you probably sell lots of traction devices and maybe even carry some shoes. I know there's the Ice Bud out there. And, what your thoughts are. I know there's a lot of Midwesterners out here and people that are in real snowy climates and ice and things like that. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in the past, basically Yaktrax, cornered the market with their devices that they had to put over your shoes. It didn't matter what long was your new shoe. But you can't get the sheet metal screws and put them in your shoes. I have 3 people that do that. A normal pair of shoes, you can screw in. Works similarly the same. So there's certain brands that curtail strictly to ice running or running on the snow. And Ice Bug is a company that does that. They make specific shoes for that, which have studs inside the shoes. Solomon makes a shoe that has studs inside the shoes. Innovate makes a shoe with studs inside the shoes. But I think for here, it's unless you have expendable income, it is a very niche-y. This is in Alaska, so it might seem like Alaska sometimes, but it really isn't Alaska. But the majority of what we see is people comfortable with Yaktrax or something to that level. Like Katula is another one. Personally, I've lived here 18 years, and I've never used a Yaktrax or any kind of device like that. But that's me. But I know that my women's group, half of them do. So it depends on the runner too. Are you comfortable? Are you not comfortable? Are you wearing the right shoes? Most trail shoes will be tacky, so it'll be a softer bottom for sticking purposes. But when you're on ice, you're on ice. It's, there's not much going to save in there. But at Flatirons Running Company, we will have Yaktrax and another device to sell to consumers. And the other thing you have to think about too, guys, is if you're just out walking the dog and you're being tugged and you're on ice, I mean, Yaktrax are great for that. If you're walking, if you have a big dog and you have to go out, I'm going to walk my dog, and you're getting dragged behind and you've got nothing to hold you up or nothing to put some skis on you.
Our friends from Alaska, we actually have some up here from Alaska, and all they need is little flashlights on their shoes because it's not that cold, it's just really dark. Brian, if you could talk a little bit about what the magazine's doing, addressing advertising and things with the snow running component.
Yeah, sure. It's obviously very seasonal and it's very, I think, region specific. Having lived through the West before, I know the winter's can be long and really cold and icy. And some conditions we talk about here, Colorado, are pretty mild. And again, there's not many days during the year where you really need that. So it is very seasonal. Certainly, we address that in very limited fashion, but we got that dedicated time to it. We have some content related to that, including how to screw your shoes, the Yaktrax devices, the various other spike devices. And we've definitely done reviews on Solomon Spike Cross and then some Ice Bugs. And personally, I think some of those shoes are really good. Very specific for one use. Again, whether you want to spend that money for that one shoe or not, I don't know. But certainly they're very good because it's built into the shoe. My challenge with some of the aftermarket devices is that you feel them under your feet a little bit. And if you're in a lot of snow or on a lot of ice, that's okay. But if you want on a piece of pavement or a hard packed trail where there's where it's virtually hard, you're gonna feel it. So, but yeah, I mean, certainly it's a very limited thing. There's some brands that really evolved some of these technologies and such, and I think they've gotten a lot better. And not only the wrong decision, but certainly there's a lot. Yeah, as far as media goes, definitely do more as other media brands will in terms of reviewing those in the season from late November to February. And certainly, again, it's weather dependent. Last year, there was a huge horrible winter in the Midwest and the East, and so I know a lot more people were asking us a lot more what to use for running the snow, and certainly that's a big part of it. It's, it doesn't snow in the dry winter, nobody really seems to notice that much, but certainly if you live in Alaska or the upper Midwest or New England, certainly that's a big issue.
Don't be afraid to try snowshoeing.
In fact, USA Track and Field, we have a Mountain Ultra Trail Council right now. We're looking at adding snow running as a component so that we can kind of get that audience and have year-round running, as it were. Any other questions? Okay, we've got one over here.
My name is Servando, I'm from Texas, and I have a question in regards to the material. How much do you recommend to run on trail running shoes, 200 miles, 300 miles? And another thing, I'm a heavy runner, I'm large, and sometimes the trail shoes don't last long for me. So I don't know if there's any trend on improving the material on the trail running shoes, the rubber, the cover.
That's a great question. And of course, our friends here will say, buy 20 pairs of shoes. Do you want to address that one?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, this is exactly that case in point, right? We came out with a new shoe, we saw some material issues. It's not anything we personally did, it's just something you always are constantly improving. So you see actually these two prototypes, there are two different types of mesh. Because even the second one we did, it wasn't quite right. So we're trying to always evolve and try to find things that are more durable, but also be functional as well. Because the problem with making something too stiff, then it's not going to be good to run. It's kind of like car companies that run with tires that last forever, but they wouldn't be fun to ride on. In the same way, as we want to make a running shoe that feels really good, but if we made it as durable as you're looking for it, probably not going to ride. So it's that constant struggle of doing both. And you being a little bigger guy, you're probably going to kind of see blow shoes out a little faster than, say, Alexander. So, that give and take, but, you always look for that. And there are certain shoes that I would recommend in my line that I think are more durable and kind of more catered to a bigger build versus some of the other things that are more lightweight. So it just depends.
I was gonna ask you, like, where are your shoes wearing out at? Like, is it your outsole? Is it like going out on the upper? Okay, I was gonna say, like, if your midsole is a problem, then there's ways to get around that. But when the outsole's going, you're putting in good mileage. And if your shoes are blowing out, then then that might be a weight issue. I mean, if you're a big guy, usually the midsole and the upper. But if your outsole's going, that should be miles. So I don't think you're that big of a guy.
Okay, I got the sign. We have to kind of wrap it up. I've got, for our ambassadors, I have one really quick question, and it's only a number. How many pairs of shoes, running shoes, do you own?
Like currently, or? Well, I always, after I go through my shoes and they're all worn out, I always donate them in those, the charity bins you see, where they give away shoes. So I try to keep a number of smelly shoes to a minimum in the apartment. So my girlfriend appreciates it, but I probably only about 6 right now.
Hey Joe, how many do you have?
I haven't. I'm just gonna give my excuse now, just so you don't judge me. But I'm doing a lot of testing and stuff, so I haven't gotten to use all of them quite yet. But I probably have a good 40. I'm a shoe fan. I got 40-something pairs of shoes.
Okay, Brian says he has a beat. How many do you have?
I probably have close to 200 pair, but that's based on testing. And someone like Adam Chase has a lot as well. But I do keep them through the years to kind of remember what they were before and how they changed. And so Looking back, I had a 2002 pair of Nike 2 boots, Air 2 boots, which I love, which I like them more. So I have a collection in my garage. I don't run them all the time, obviously, but I go back and I like them shoes. So.
Brian wins. Oh, wait a minute.
Number 600.
Winner, chicken dinner. Okay. Thank you to Sage and Greg and Joe and Henry and Brian, and the audience.